I'm Akhil Vishwanatham, VP Engineering for International Technology at Walmart Global Tech India. I'm excited to introduce the session, Lessons from Service Retailing, with an interesting mix of speakers. With the COVID-19 pandemic, the world has completely transformed. Retail as an industry has changed by leaps and bounds. This has led to emergence of new models, both from a business and technology standpoint, setting the stage to combine both product and service retailing. While service retailing itself has been in existence for some time now, it has really caught on speed in the last 18 to 24 months. Obviously, technology has played a great role in meeting and driving this demand, and today we will explore how it has impacted the world of service retailing. To discuss this topic, we have with us Ankit Nagori, co-founder of Cure.fit, a holistic healthcare platform. Over to you, Ankit.
Hi, thanks for inviting me for this talk. Very excited. So there's a couple of lines about me. I've been an internet entrepreneur for about 14 years now. Have had stints at Flipkart and then of course co-founded Cure.fit with Mukesh. And now I'm focused on building the EatFit business. Happy to share thoughts today.
Thanks, Ankit. Welcome. We also have Tanuj Choudhry, co-founder and COO for HomeLane, India's choice for on-time home interiors. Welcome, Tanuj. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Akhil, and great to meet you and Ankit on this platform. As Akhil said, I'm one of the co-founders at HomeLane.com. We are a home interiors platform, and we help new homeowners move into a fully furnished house. We started this business about 7 years back, and over the last few years, we've delivered close to 20,000 homes. We're in about 16 cities. I'm a math grad by education. I'm probably one of the few non-engineers in the startup cohorts these days. And I spent some time at McKinsey right after graduating. But I think much prouder about the startup background that I have over the last 8 to 9 years. Great to be here.
Awesome, Tanuj. Welcome, and most probably I'll be your future customer. You never know. Okay. So before we jump into the questions, for everyone else who's viewing this, we have something special for you. Please do tweet your key takeaways from the session with the hashtag Converge at Walmart. There are exciting prizes for a few lucky tweets. Ankit, so let me start with you. Now, COVID-19 has obviously been an inflection point for e-commerce and retail in general. How has the last 1.5 years been for service retailers? And what trends did you see and that you believe will even stick post the pandemic?
Akhil, when the pandemic hit the country or the world rather, I don't think service retailers were really ready for an omni-channel experience. And it has hit some of the sectors really hard. Of course, hospitality is one of them, and sports and entertainment is second, and third is the multiplexes or cinema halls. The challenge with all of these is that they were like 100% in-person businesses. Even if you had an omni-channel presence, it would just be to create a booking experience or a post-event experience or a community around the activity. But the fulfillment of such services actually happen at the premise. And for a large part of last 1.5 years, most of these services are either prohibited by the government, for between the different waves and different lockdowns, rightly so, or they have been, very sparsely used because customers are very worried. But of course, there is silver lining and there is future hope. I really feel that once the pandemic eases out and we have started seeing that, in certain parts of the country, of course, certain part of the country still, has a larger number of cases, but in northern part of the country now, we are seeing more footfalls across such businesses. What has changed is, of course, most businesses have now adopted an omni-channel booking experience. So while Cult as a gym has had this feature for 5 years, now most gyms, most restaurants, most entertainment centers now have an experience where you can go scan your product or scan your QR code or book before you use. So adoption of digital booking, digital payments, digital ordering at the premise is really taken off. How it helps is in future, it can become like a click and brick or pick me later kind of pick your product later kind of a experience. The other area which has really worked well from a service industry point of view is just the employee records. So now most apps or most service industry companies or partners are trying to showcase the temperature, whether the partner is vaccinated or not. So in general, I think it opens up a huge opportunity to create information about your service providers. If you're going to a salon, right now, most salons don't have a booking experience where you can choose a stylist. You have to make a call into it. But I think with the advent of technologies which are enabling you to know whether your stylist is vaccinated or what the body temperature was, there are enough areas. I think when it comes to urban company, which is an at-home service, which is also a service experience, you know everything about the stylist which is coming home, right? So I think there are silver lining, but I feel that once a large part of the population is vaccinated and there is some sort of a immunity, the service industry will bounce back with a more efficient footprint because of these changes.
Right. And do you see some of these services which were primarily in person earlier can be a hybrid model going forward?
I think yes, there will be at least 10 to 20% people who prefer the hybrid model, like in any other industry, right? So if I think of fitness, a lot of it will be online. A lot of it actually will be at home also. So right now you have to go to the gym, but in many cases, customers would want to prefer doing it online, which many customers are doing. The other interesting thing could be professional coming home. I see that happening across entertainment. I've heard and seen some gatherings where the similar gathering would have happened at a hotel or a restaurant, but a small music troupe comes home and makes the celebration better. So I think yes, 10% cases it will become digital, 10% will become at home, but I think 80% is like the reason why people go out is for community. So that can't change, right? So 20% of course can change.
Right. Interesting. Tanuj, now you are in a slightly different business where it's a good mix of service and product retailing. And how did the last 18 to 24 months really change the business for you?
So obviously after the rude shock in March, I think we were at as much at sea as any other service provider. And for us, it hit us quite hard because at the end of the day, if I have to get home interiors done, I do need access to the home. I need to produce those products. And unfortunately, I can't give you a nice VR image of your house and say, you should be happy with this. But at the same time, I think just like, Ankit also mentioned, it opened up a lot of innovation right away. So 2-3 trends that we saw right away, first wave itself. One is we suddenly saw a lot more customers becoming okay to transact and to get design services done online than they ever were. Initially, a lot of this, and I think that's the truth with most consultative sales, low frequency, high value ticket items. So if I look at automobiles, I know automobiles really, we had to slam the brakes on sales. But when they opened up, there was so much more research available online to be able to find out which second-hand car, first-hand car. For us as a business, we had a feature called spacecraft virtual meeting, with a floor plan, we could put together a very, very high fidelity design for your house. And, you could actually get to almost a point where you could say, all right, as soon as things open up, go produce it. And if your supply chain is strong, we have this 45 days delivery or rent guarantee, so to say. So we produce in 20 days and we deliver in about 15 days after that. We install everything. We really needed just 1 month to get stuff done if the design was ready. So a lot of the focus went on to trying to preload a lot of the work virtually because customers were also okay with it. Second thing that we saw was, I think customers generally required more stuff before you booked. I'm not sure if this was the case in some of the industries that both of you have seen, but I clearly noticed that before people were putting down money, they were far more clear about, they wanted better clarity on whether I'll get the right fit, I'll get the right quality, I'll get the right service provider. So actually communication had to go up very, very significantly. I mean, you have to tell people a lot of things that, so far was very, very implicit, so to say. And the last change I personally saw was, I think a lot of the service providers who were trying to do too many things at the same time struggled a little bit more than the ones who were far more focused on some. So I think the example that Ankit took about urban company is a good one, because they went from offering hundreds of services to trimming it down to a small set and then expanding it slowly. And I think the same was even with us. I think if we had promised the moon, we would have definitely not been able to deliver it. So it kind of became a good run for a lot of businesses. They became extremely lean, and they said, all right, I'm not going to do 100 services. I'll focus on some and do a good job of them, and hopefully get a better NPS, better reference. Overall, I think the bounce back was very strong in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. But again, second wave was a little bit of second wave was definitely a dampener. But I think it was a bit more expected in terms of outcomes. So it was a little bit more dealable, so to say.
So you would say that you were a lot more prepared, if you say, for the second wave than for the first wave, right?
Yes, and I think one is, the entrepreneurs or the leadership being prepared. The second is the team being prepared, and I feel entrepreneurs, founders, management teams are always more bullish about their business. They're always clear that they'll be able to transcend any sort of challenges. But I do feel that when you have to take the entire team along with you, you can't just give one inspiring speech and expect 2,000, 3,000 people to follow suit. You need to walk the talk with them. You need to be on the ground. You need to tell them about things that they need to do. You need to think about their vaccinations, like Ankit mentioned. And most importantly, I think you also need to do the hard job of asking questions around, does this really need to be done in person? Or can we actually do this through automation? Can we do this or something else that does not require people contact? I think we're still a long way off. I think we're still a lot to do.
But it's surely changed the industry and changed the mindset of people, right? Not just people who run businesses, but people who shop, obviously. But staying with you, Tanuj, and talking a little bit about technology itself. And obviously you spoke a little bit about how technology helped you bridge this gap and make the change. So could you talk about, say, one or two of those innovative things that technology helped you build and take you to where you are now?
Sure. I can start with the statistic. I think that might help. In April, May, June 2020, when automobile as an industry almost came to a grounding halt, the sales were close to zero. We actually landed up doing close to 65, 70 crores of business during those 3 months, which is about 30% of what we were doing before that, about 30 to 40%. Which came as a surprise to many, because they said, "Yaar, matlab aap log home interiors kar rahe hain without meeting people. How are people willing to put in a check of 7 lakh rupees, 8 lakh rupees, etc." And for us, the reason why we were able to do that was through this product which we had created, as I mentioned earlier. But I can talk a little bit about it because it might have connotations for other industries as well. The idea of spacecraft came about because a lot of customers, when they are making a high transaction purchase, they find it very, very difficult to understand the nuts and bolts of different parts. If I have to get my home done, I have to get a kitchen done. Kitchen has tons of cabinets. If I have to get my wardrobes done, how many shelves do I need? Where are you going to put the lights? And we noticed that a lot of traditional tools were extremely slow and expensive. So we created something in-house, and we created a virtual meeting option 4 years back. And shockingly enough, that thing was hardly used. I mean, 8% of our customers were meeting us. And the problem also was that customers who we were meeting virtually were converting not as well as in-person customers. So you know how sales teams are. I mean, they are governed by, okay, conversion not happening, chuck that source, let's move to something else that's moving better. And you can say whatever you want, but they're not going to miss their incentives. Come COVID first wave, the entire thing switched. 92% done through virtual meetings, 92% of the orders, 8% of orders done where we were allowed to go and visit a customer's home. And the idea over there was simple. Can we provide, get the decision to a point where a customer can broadly get an idea of what they're going to get, and combine it with stuff like referrals, which I think in our industry is the crux. I mean, you can keep doing digital, but if you're not able to get enough referral, high quality projects, visualize them. And I think that AR, VR piece really, really helped. That was one. The second quick one, which I thought was very interesting personally, we also use this, 6 to 9 months to actually stitch our core technology stack much better. I'm not sure how many teams actually went through this, but one way of looking at it is to get very frustrated with the business around you and say, "Kuch nahi ho raha hai. Let's just just keep giving it a shot, keep giving it a shot. But there are some things that are a little bit more immovable than the others. You can keep trying to move something immovable, or you can kind of focus their attention. It took us time to realize that. So, but once we did that, I think the amount of time we actually got on the tech stack to, create some of the other user stories, products, was great. And I think a lot of startups actually landed up doing that. The only problem now is that I think, as a joke goes, I mean, it's easier to source engineers from the valley than from Bangalore, but that wasn't the case 12 months back.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, Ankit, from your perspective, technology obviously would have played a big role, right, to bridge this last 18 months. So, could you talk a little bit about specific examples on where you invested and how it actually helped you?
Right, like how Tanuj mentioned, that they had invested in the VR or the virtual technology, and a lot of customers weren't using it earlier before the pandemic, and I'm sure there would have been a spike of such customers. Similarly, on the Cult.fit app, we always had a lot of digital content, and barely less than 5% people would do digital classes. But
Right.
Because of the foresight, of the teams and of the product teams and technology teams, we build these technologies in a very robust manner, which is why, if you remember, we launched all of these free classes in the first phase, and the numbers were like crazy, 10x of offline numbers. So, and because we had those investments in place, we were able to scale and also ship out a proper product for digital technology, in place. Likewise, the other product which we had invested on and continued to build better was the subscription product. So when the lockdowns opened after the first wave, a lot of the domestic staff, etc., had moved out. People were very wary of getting domestic staff back, cooks and cleaners, etc. So we have this subscription product in EatFit where the box just keeps coming, and it can be delivered without any touch. Just is no contact delivery. So we were able to launch that, and during the second wave, also launched the quarantine pack where full day's food is delivered with ice packs, etc., so that you can just reheat it when you want. So I think subscription food was a very, very important product. The digital platform for Cult, which is the online classes, mental wellness, the doctor consulting platform, all of these, which were like a smaller part of the revenue pre-pandemic, went on to become the larger part. And of course, with food, just the service of getting food delivered at home in a safe and sound manner, it for itself was a pretty large benefit for the customers. So yes, I think overall, the technology platforms which can enable customers to do stuff remotely or at home in a digital manner is the reason why some of the companies have been able to ride out the pandemic better than others.
Nice. So just a question here, bro. Between the two lockdowns, when things opened up, how was the engagement with the digital content, or even like leveraging doctors that you had, or any of the other digital content which was there? So was it the same, or did it take a dip as people moved into in person?
So if I would say that earlier, if it was 80% people doing offline and 20 online, between the two lockdowns, the 20 moved to 30 or 40, and so 80-20 before the first wave, then 80, that would have become like 20-80 in the reverse manner. But I think between the two waves, it went to like 60 offline and 50 online. So overall, the market grew because more people stayed back with online, and people who were really keen to come back came back to offline. So yeah, I think the impact of these digital platforms has meant that the overall business has grown, while offline has shrunk a bit, but digital has grown significantly.
And is that, do you think that is more because of the comfort people have with online content and online now, or is it more of a little bit of a fear of the pandemic still around?
Akhil, comfort, fear, or also the TAM increases, right? The moment you're a digital content or a online food. So online food can be delivered from Indranagar to Marathalli, right? While likewise, if you're sitting in Patna or Lucknow, you can now access the Cult.fit app or anything else which earlier couldn't have been. So I think the tier 2 India or the tier 3 India has truly embraced online content during these pandemics.
Okay, I had one other point to add. Actually, two other very quick points. One is I'm a big Cure.fit fan because when things locked down, I think depending on how paranoid people were, I think it basically meant that if you want to stay at home and stay fit, there are not too many other options, and you can do real time classes, but they're kind of you can do real time classes with individual trainers, but they're kind of unpredictable. You never know whether somebody will come in or not. I felt that even the quality of the content went up very significantly, whether we talk about Cure.fit or we talk about other content based services. And I think a lot of people talk about how consumption has moved digital. I also feel just the general level of quality of content has also grown leaps and bounds. And I think that's going to play a big part over the next 2 to 3 years, whether we be offline or we be online. And I do feel that for many years we were not being able to cross that. We were again coming down to the same response ads, trying to do a lot of SEM, a lot of Facebook advertising, which is actually sales advertising almost. Compared to the last few months, where people have had the time to read a little bit more, they are researching a lot more about the kind of things that they're eating, where they're going to be spending their time. We have people who have reached out to us with a very specific description of the kind of furniture that they want for their home office, so to say. We never had that kind of interest even 3-4 years back, whether it's for beds or whatever. So
Right.
I think the content has improved, and the last B is that I also feel that if there are even if this movement from 20 to 40 happens, I think it's a huge leap by itself. I mean, fairly irreversible unless things really go south.
Right. No, that's a great point on content. I mean, it just shows the amount of investment that is done on both sides, right? Like you said, the people are doing a lot more research, so they're reviewing more, they're making more informed choices. At the same time, companies are actually investing more in online content, more on the technology side of it. So it's a good mix of both.
Yes.
And then the overall base itself is increasing. The customer base itself is increasing. While the 20 to 40, when you compare it with the base, with the growth in the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities now, the base itself has expanded way beyond of what we would have thought 18 months ago. So, well, staying on that whole base thing, and Ankit, now you've got a lot more data from your customers, and obviously it's a much larger scope. So how do you actually use the data to give each of your customers maybe a personalized experience? Is that something that you're focusing on?
Right, Akhil, in fact, I think that's a great question and very relevant. In fact, what has helped us is, create more canned experiences. I'll talk more about it. So while the data is very good to create customized experiences and personalized experiences, with the quantum of data that now we have, and over the 5 years, and also especially in the last 1.5 years, where a lot more digital activity is happening and a lot more at-home consumption is happening, we figured out very active data sharing by the customers. Data sharing would mean canceling a subscription because of some reason, changing the meal from A to B, what is getting delivered on Tuesday versus Wednesday, uh, dropping off from a workout session at 37th minute. And when we see that happens because probably the music changes. So what has happened is because of such rich data, and not only specific to pandemic, but the kind of businesses that we all run, which is very tech driven and data driven, we can create better canned products. So Akhil, more than the customized and personalized, I feel that businesses will scale when you're able to create canned products which
Hmm.
can be catered to different audiences. There could be 30 such solutions, and I think could be very relevant for Tanuj also. And I'll tell you why, because when we design our kitchens or cult centers, we actually look at what are the possible layouts, square, L-shaped, U-shaped, and we create templates which can be used for future, so that each time when we design those centers and kitchens, it may not be needed. Likewise, Tanuj, when he's showcasing the samples of how a bedroom can look like, etc., you can just create canned, like this is what double income family with no kids would go for. This is what internally, and of course create brands. Likewise, we now know that probably there are 10 personas, young person or looking to order food online because looking to subscribe to a subscription because he does not have access to maids or domestic helps. Likewise, double income family, they have access to the cook but only like once a day. So we know what kind of products will work with what kind of persona, and are able to market it differently. Of course, we don't call it with these tags, there are the ways of marketing it, like, weekend pack or a weekend celebration pack, which can have a, healthier pizza, a whole wheat pizza as opposed to a maida wala pizza. So I think what data enables you to do is to understand larger trends amongst customers and then give them a feeling of personalization, customization by giving micro changes. Some of these micro changes could be, add more XYZ, reduce XYZ. Likewise, in the fitness, you can just say, you can use this, you can do this session with a 5 kilogram dumbbell as opposed to 3, because you've seen that customer has mostly subscribed to heavy duty workout. So when you're starting the workout, you can give them a recommendation that use a 5 kg dumbbell as opposed to 3. So I think canned plans with a feeling of customization by making those micro changes available.
Right. The configurability makes it feel a lot more personalized in that way. That's great. Yeah. So Tanuj, from your side, how do you think things have? How is data helping you out?
So, I mean, if you replace the gyms and all with furniture, you got my answer as well. Ankit has already covered a lot of it. Because, I mean, frankly speaking, I think there are two places where data has played a huge role. Mostly while we are building HomeLane, but especially in the last 1.5 years. One is on acquisition. The second is on supply chain. On acquisition, a lot of it has been focused on which are the customers who we can serve and cannot serve. I think we had to become very brutal about saying no to certain set of customers who we were still okay before COVID to say, all right, let the customers come in, we'll have a conversation, we'll try and tweak the requirements, etc. But today, if you look at the sales funnel or the design funnel, it's very clear that you will see those, as Ankit said, 6 to 8 personas reflecting very, very strongly, and all the other personas which are not priority personas becoming low. And I can give you an example of that. A customer who's bought a house of more than 2.5 crores in Bangalore, or about 3.5 crores in Mumbai, actually becomes a difficult customer for us to service. So our TG is customers who've got homes between 50 lakhs and 2 crores. And as soon as it goes above that 1.7, 2 crores or so, the level of customization required goes, you want fine dining, you're not okay with QSR anymore, sort of say. And unless we had instrumented the data very clearly around, what is fine dining versus what is QSR, I think we would have burnt in the last 1.5 years, to the point where when everything was locked down and we were still booking orders, designs were getting done. One question for the supply chain team was, all right, fine. I mean, when things are going to open, we're going to again see the bullwhip effect of orders coming in. Suddenly you'll see a huge peak. 45 days will become 70 days, 80 days. How do you actually maintain experience? And for the first time at HomeLane, we actually pre-produced panels where there was, commonalities in terms of, sizes, shapes, colors, etc. So a lot of deep work went into data as far as, what we should produce and keep, because we generally are very averse to inventory. I mean, we don't like inventory at all. But this is the first time we actually did it, and it was incredibly helpful. So that is on the supply chain side, where we use data to aggregate demand and figure out what is the kind of production we need to do. Where do we need to produce? Do we produce in Bangalore? Do we do it in Delhi? That was one. And the second piece around data was, funnily enough, we have about 2,000 installers who are partners, so to say. They go and do the final installation of customers' homes, teams of 4 people. Almost 60% of them had gone back home. They had gone back home. So the question was that, all right, we'll design, we'll produce, but who will install? I mean, beyond a certain point, even if I go and take my bike out, there is a certain limit to it. Getting the data around, where they are, figuring out how they'll be able to make a trip back between the 2 states, what are the agreements? Because there were a lot of these. So this might, I know it doesn't sound like a very complex data modeling problem, but I think for a lot of businesses, that bit of data gave them the confidence to say, all right, on the 15th of the month, I'll be at 80% staff. On the 20th of the month, I'll be at 90%. And if another COVID wave hits, I'll be able to keep them in the place by paying them X amount of money as retention. So some of the data really helped us keep our supply in place from a people standpoint as well.
Okay. Got it. Interesting. That's a different part of the whole problem which was existing, right? Customer is the other side, is one side, and then you have the back end that you need to put in place for all of these things to happen. Now, as the year went by, and as people started adopting to online ways of communication and needs, did their service needs change? I mean, from a pure customer service point of view, did it look different from what it was before? And how did it look different, and what did you do to meet that?
For me, it was a big difference. Three broad areas. A, customers became a lot more demanding in what they wanted upfront, whether it's guarantees, sureties, ability to be able to see stuff, because they were not going to be able to meet us. And again, in a large ticket, purchase, or even a small ticket purchase, actually, not being able to meet the person who you're going to be working with is a no-no in a lot of, or at least was a no-no in a lot of parts of the country. So A was, how do I do that? B, to an extent, customers were more demanding, but they were also willing to shell out more for convenience. We introduced deep cleaning services. We introduced the ability, we reduced the sizes of the teams which were actually going and visiting the sites, etc. And we were very transparent with the customer, saying, you know what, we will have to share the cost for this. We cannot absorb the entire cost ourselves. And I mean, the cancellations, etc., did not go up significantly because of that. It was about 3%. It went up to about 5% of our total order book. So customers were willing to pay more as long as they got the convenience. And the last thing which I saw was, at the end of the day, even though they were more demanding and they were willing to pay money, I think 9 out of 10 customers we felt were extremely reasonable in their final assessment of what we wanted. So, one way of looking at it is to say you're always going to be hitting a block, and the customers are always going to be frustrated that, that final thing did not happen on the day. But I think we saw such a great side of customers who we were serving, because everybody had people who were affected or infected in the family. And I personally feel that, I think the customers cooperating actually made up a big part of why we were able to rebound. So as long as we were transparent, I think we noticed the same reciprocity from them. And where we were not, we got hell from them. I think very, very clearly. That's what at least we saw, Ankit. Over here.
Sure. I think in our experience, two things. One, customers' paranoia around just the health, safety, wellness aspect, understandably so, has gone up significantly. And how it shows up is, whether the services which you're offering are exactly what has been promised. So the tolerance level on what you see is what you get has gone down significantly. I think paranoia, general environment of fear has led to that. One area where I've seen positive changes, the tolerance level on service level agreement, where if the food has to be delivered in 20 minutes, it reaches in 25 minutes. I think those kind of complaints have gone down sometimes. I think the speed, the I want it now, or in general, that kind of behavior has changed a little. Probably also because people probably have more time to themselves, or in general, the expectation of just a back-to-back or chock-a-block kind of schedules have changed. So I think, like I said, it's a two-pronged change. One is a change where your margin of error has gone down significantly, because the impact is also very big if there is a margin of error. But in general, I feel that from timelines perspective, from overall delivery experience perspective, there is slightly more, room for error. Not that we need that room for error, but also because I'll give again an example of both urban company, which as an experience I've seen, or I'll give an example of food delivery, which we actively do. Most apartment complexes now, make you drop the food 10 minutes away or 5 minutes away from your apartment complex at a gate or a clubhouse or
Right.
so in general, the expectation is now that it won't be delivered right at the time, because now you are supposed to go pick it up. Likewise, urban company in our apartment complex, at least, they make them go through two checks, because the person is going to so while the person might be double vaccinated, but every apartment complex or RWA has their own rules. So they check their certificate, or they check their RT-PCR negative or whatnot. So it adds to the service level. So I think customers now believe that, there is 1% delay because of the COVID protocols. So yeah.
Right. Right. So there's obviously an understanding of what the situation is. There's a little bit of adaptability and collaboration also from the customer's perspective. That's awesome. Awesome. Hey, and that's a wrap from our side. So thank you, Ankit. Thank you, Tanuj, for your time. And it's been amazing. I can't believe 30 minutes have passed by so fast. So for me, I think the verdict is clear, right? Service retailing is not just here to stay, but will create a huge impact in the retail industry. And it is going to really drive the growth that we see in the future, right? So again, thank you very much for joining us and sharing everything from your experience and your learnings and your thoughts. I wish both of you and your companies the very best for the future.
Thanks, Akhil. Thanks, Ankit.
Thank you, Akhil. Thanks, Ankit. Thanks to the Your Story and Walmart team for organizing this. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. See you.
So thank you, audience, for tuning in today. And I'm sure that all of you have got something really important as a takeaway from this session. Don't forget to tweet them with the hashtag Converge at Walmart. Thank you.